I know that we've moved very, very quickly, and I want to just take a minute to back up and figure out what it is we're actually doing. Right now, the idea of this is that we have a very organized application here. And in fact, all of our files that we're going to be writing, once we're done building the framework, most of that should go into this application right here. And most of those should be in the controller, model, or view folder. Okay? And so just a kind of a practical way that we can keep testing this is, let's build a new file here. And I'm going to call this, let's call this tools.php. All right? And inside of here, let's open up our PHP tags and not close them. And we're going to go ahead and class tools extends controller. Okay, and then we will do public function construct. All right, and what we're going to do is inside of here, we're going to set up pass in our controller and our action, and then parent construct, also pass our controller and our action there. And here I'm going to set our layout. So this view set layout, I'm just going to say default. So we could have different layouts even for different parts of our application. We don't really necessarily need to put this because we've defined that in our config file. I'm just putting this here for reference in case we decide to use a different layout at some point. Now let's go ahead and just create 3 different actions really quickly. We'll do an index action, and the only reason I'm going to do that is so that we have an index. It's probably a good idea inside all of our controllers to have an index action. And here all I'm going to do is this view render tools /index. Okay. Then what I want to do is, let's just do first action. This view render tools first, and then I'm going to copy this a couple times. Okay, just give this a little space here. I'm going to call this one second. Load this second, and I'm going to call this third. Alright, so this is all we need to do to build a controller, and we could do inside of all these actions, we would do any logic that we need. We'd also get any information from our models or pass any information to our models here. But just for simple demonstration, we've built this new deal. So what I'm going to do is inside the views now, I'm going to create a new folder called tools. Okay, and inside that I'm going to create a new file called index.php. I'm going to create a new file called first.php, one called second.php, and finally one called third.php. And these aren't very good examples. However, it's just going to show you really quickly, how this works out. So what I'm going to do to make this a little faster is we'll copy and paste. But first, I'm going to say this start body this end. All right, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say h1 class equals text center in red. I could have copied this from the index page, but what I want to do here is I'm going to say this is the tools index page. And let's just also set our site title, and we'll put that as tools. Okay. Okay. I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to go to the first here, and we're going to say first tools. This is the first tools page. Maybe what we'll do, kind of do something like that. And then I'm going to copy this, and we'll go to second. Let's make this stand out a little bit. And then on the third one, do the same thing. We'll just see if this is working well. Okay, so if I did that correctly, I should be able to just type in tools, and I have a problem in my controller. Line 10. Yep, all of these I forgot to put public function. So, by the way, in Atom you can command click and put multiple cursors down, and then when you type, that's how I was able to type all those functions at the same time. So again, you probably know that, but just a little tip if you haven't used it before or anything like it. All right, so now tools, it loads. This is the tools index page, and we have our site title set to tools. I could also put index here, and we've got the exact same thing, but I can do first, and now we go to first tools. So this is the first tools page. I can do second, and this says the view tools second does not work, so we're missing that D. What happened there? That would be because we're missing it right there. Okay. So this is the second tools page. Second tools, it's all working fine. And just for a good measure, let's make sure I didn't do anything funky on the third one. This is the third tools page. So as you can see, the MVC framework now is doing exactly what it should. We're loading our layout, and we're doing it from everything is loading through the index.php page here. And so when it does, if you remember, if we can go back now to I know this video is getting long, but just hang with me just for one more second, because what I want to do is kind of jump back in now to our core files and look at our route method, because now it makes total sense what's happening. Our URL is being passed in as an array. We split that up, if you remember, our index page. Okay. Once that happens, we grab our controller from the first element of that array. We make sure it's capitalized, and if it's not set, we set it to our default from our config file. We then take away the first element of the array with the array shift method or function. Then we grab our action. So since we've taken away the first element, now the action is in the first element of this array, and we are concatenate onto that the word action with a capital A, so that we can write other methods in our controller besides actions, but actions are going to have action on the end of them. And if we don't put anything, it's going to assume index action. Okay, we pop that off that array there, or we shift it off, and then what we're left with is our query params. So any parameters after that are going to be passed into our action. So then what happens, we create a new object. We call that object dispatch. And what we do, we instantiate that with the controller. So if it's home, it uses the home controller, and we pass in our controller name and our action. And what happens there is really cool, because if you look at those, let's look at home, for instance. We have two parameters in the construct. So this first parameter gets passed to the first parameter in the construct, and the second parameter gets passed to the second parameter in the construct. So when this is instantiated, it constructs the object with passes in these to the construct, and we pass those to the parent. The parent, of course, is our controller. The controller then takes this and it sets up our controller and our action, and it also instantiates our view object. So we have a new view object here, and it sets it to our view, our property here. View is actually an object, so that instantiates that. Once that happens, we actually then call the method on our dispatch object. So our method is actually our action that's being called. So if we look at that, then we have our so let's go here. We have our index action. So if index is being called in our router, it's actually calling that, and it's passing into that query params. Now what's cool about that is now we have parameters that are being passed into our actions. So right here, the query params are passed right in there as an array, and we could use those inside of our controller and inside of those actions. Then what's happening, so that's it for our router, but then what happens is our controller loads, we already have view, and the reason we have view is because remember when we instantiate that controller here, it sets view. So that in the parent we have access to this view already, and we have access to the render method in that view, because we go down to our view here, we have render here, and so that's our, when we instantiate that new view object, we have access to these methods. So then it takes the view name and it loads it, it basically includes that view and then includes our layout, and our layout then uses other view methods or that we have, like set site or site title, and we actually insert those renderings into our layout. So I know that that's a little bit complex, but take a little time to learn how that works and just play with it. And in our next video, what we're going to do is connect to our database and start building our database wrapper so that we can actually start making a real application with this MVC framework. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you're starting to understand how maybe some of the greater MVC applications work. And to be honest with you, the reason that I even started this project is because I personally wanted to understand Falcon better. I use Falcon at my job, or I want to understand CodeIgniter better, and I could go in through and read their source code, and I would definitely understand better. But this process of building my own gives me a better understanding of even how to read their source code. And I'm not purposely copying any of their source code. If I'm copying method names just because I'm used to doing that sort of methods like the start and end stuff from Falcon. I've kind of adopted that into this. I'm not trying to rip those guys off. Look, I'm just trying to teach you and learn myself how to program better, and so this is just part of the journey, and I hope you're having fun so far, and I hope you're learning a lot. So I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.